Thanks for taking a chance and coming down to join us. We're glad you're here. Next up this evening is Duncan Berry, who's brought a lot to the Fisher Poets gathering over the years. He's one of the founders of the Fish People outfit there. He's got some delightful art at the Gear Shack. He's running a couple of fish print workshops tomorrow at Studio 11. He's grown up, born in Banks and grown up on the coast, and loves, he tells us he loves fish more than most people he's met, but I suppose that's probably not really true if you got down to it. Anyway, Duncan, are you out in the crowd? I don't see you offhand. Oh my gosh, right in front of my nose. Come on up, thanks very much. Neither of us were paying attention.
Thank you. Thank you. I got the back of one of my phones on there.
Oh, yeah.
I got, yeah. So evening. So west of here right now is one of the most exciting moments on the sea, and that is it's crab season. And so here's for the Dungeness. Yeah. So I also wanted to shout out, there's a big group of our posse back here, Fish People. So thanks for coming. Yeah. And this is a work song, a sea shanty, and so I need all of you to join in because when you work together, you sing together. And so this isn't just another quiet poem. This is something where I need you to join in and help me keep the beat. This song actually goes out to Mike Shirley, who's one of the founders of our docks. Mike. And it's called The Ballad of Dungy Boy. And what it really talks about is 60-million-year-old revenge story. Most of you probably don't know it, but octopus come from the clam family. And Dungeness love more than anything else to eat clams. And so this is one clam turned into an octopus and is setting the record straight. So I'm going to ask you to help me with the chorus. And so I'll do it once, and then I'll come back, and we'll do it together. So this is called The Ballad of Dungy Boy. Well, Metacarcinus Magister is the samurai of the sea, armored up with 10 strong legs and proud as he can be. Well, Mr. Dungy Boy, you might have finally met your match, for there's a big old 8-legged octopus wants to wolf you down his hatch. Wants to wolf you down his hatch. Okay, that it? Well, Metacarcinus Magister is samurai of the sea, armored up with 10 strong legs and proud as he can be. Well, Mr. Dungy Boy, you might have finally met your match, for there's a big old 8-legged octopus wants to wolf you down his hatch. Well, for millions and millions of years, crabs have been eating their favorite clam. One of those clams that a dream of its own to make that Dungy Boy crab into spam. For octopus of the clam family, bet you didn't know that. Yep, dropped their shell and they grew some legs and got that crab chasing thing down flat. Well, revenge can be sweet after 50 million years. Octopus setting the record straight. So anytime someone's eating your lunch, change up your game and help them meet their fate. Well, Metacarcinus Magister is a samurai of the sea, armored up with 10 strong legs and just as fierce as he can be. Well, Mr. Dungy Boy, you have finally met your match, for there's a big old 8-legged octopus gonna wolf you down his hatch. Well, we're working a line of pots along the 20-fathom line, searching for our double boys and that sodium vapor shine. Well, God has a sense of humor, that much is crystal clear. Why else would he make crabs fill out at the worst time of the year? Lines are spinning in the block pot, swaying to and fro. Sort out 20 more crusty boys, and down the chute they go. So Metacarcinus Magister is the samurai of the sea, armored up with 10 strong legs, just as mean as he can be. Well, Mr. Dungy boy, you have finally met your match, for there's a big old hangry octopus gonna wolf you down his hatch. Well, swells are coming high as a house wind screaming in our ears, when suddenly pots come up empty, feeding the worst of our fears. Someone's beat us to the punch, boys, taking no prisoners and leaving no trace. It's one of them eight-leggeds down below with a big smile on his face. Well, 3 empty pots later, up he finally comes, our bright red cephalopod James. He lets out one hell of a crabby belch, and then he looks me straight in the eye and winks. He looks me straight in the eye and he winks. Well, word up on the street about you, Octo. Word of your Squidward, Tentacool, and Octoraptor fame. Humans in their boats playing the El Pulpo Apocalypus Kraken game. 'Cause sticks and stones, they can't break your bones, Psycho Mantis, Squicken, Octobros, Sir Crabtopus, Flompy Dumpster. No. 'Cause Mr. Dungy boy, you have finally met your match. But there's a big old 8-legged octopus that just wolfed you down his hatch. He went and wolfed you down his hatch. Thank you. 60-million-year-old revenge, how sweet it can be. So this is a little more serious moment. This one's called Returning Home. So it's clear to me now there are only 2 types of people in the world. Those that have put to sea and those that have not. What necessity, inspiration, foolishness has driven each of us like space travelers to don our special suits, climb aboard our craft, and set out for this foreign liquid planet we call the sea. Maybe it's that nothing's ever the same there, nor predictable, nor bent to our will. Maybe that's why we leave the familiar, well-worn place of birth and home, wives and husbands, rolling the dice again, risking it all every time. Maybe the same reason it's so hard to come back once we're there, to surrender the single-minded simplicity of just fishing. Pointing her east towards noise and color and the details of a life like a swarm of bees waiting for you at the edge of the dock, where you can't tell from a man or a woman's walk if they could handle it blowing out of the southwest for 3 straight days, slamming through liquid mountains, sleep for someone else, and nothing will hold still. Or is it a dim spark lost under that layered midden of generation upon human generation, stretching back before we stood upright, had limbs, an unconscious return to our original salty cradle? Salty, like our blood, that runs in its own tide, being called by a voice we can't hear, but nevertheless commands us to leave the land we borrowed and return home. Thank you. You know, something about shanties and singing is so much more like lively and gets your pump. I listen to myself reading that, it sounds really quiet and really serious. But so I'm going to do one more serious one. So I don't know if any of you have been recently to the Oregon Coast Aquarium, but there's a show there called Thanks Be to the Sea, and it's of Gyotaku, but it's really what I call a declaration of interdependence. All of us, everyone in this room, daily depends on the sea. And a lot of people say, oh yeah, I mean, I eat seafood, yeah. Or my dad took me fishing one time, or sometimes it's our living. But even people in Cleveland, Ohio, if they breathe, they depend on the sea. So this is a little declaration of interdependence called Thanks Be to the Sea. Well, some say we sprang from the sea. I say we never left. For that liquid, salty benevolence is there inside every breath we take, every thought we think, and with every beat of our heart. Thanks be to the sea. And this is not some abstract, I kind of get what you're talking about thing. It's a deep, active, moment by moment, connected forever at the hip thing, like this. Stop for a moment. Take a deep breath with me. This rhythmic in and out happens over 25,000 times a day in your body. And each time is the gift from an almost invisible drifter in the sea, phytoplankton, quietly delivering almost 70% of the oxygen you will ever breathe. Now, these creatures, they have a direct relationship with the sun, unlike you and I. They want for nothing but for the bathing sea, transporting currents and sunlight, breathing out so we may breathe in. Thanks be to the sea. And there are 100 billion cells and counting in this gray braided whirl of a brain that sits atop our shoulders, each one fashioned from that miracle stuff we so clinically call long-chain fatty acid omega-3s. As you issued forth from your mother's womb, taking your first breath, inside your cranium sloshed 60% of this high-octane jet fuel, and most of its molecules could be traced back to that same tiny workhorse phytoplankton drifting in an open sea, these oily omega molecules climbing the trophic ladder, leaping from zooplankton to forage fish to salmon and into your mother's mouth. This is a well-traveled path taken by thousands of generations of our kind over millions of years. But 200,000 years ago, something different happened to our African cradle of a continent, plunging it into a wasting drought for thousands of years. Our ancestors finding refuge in caves along the rim of the sea, their kitchen middens telling the story of surviving only by the generosity of the sea. Fish and birds and mammals and seaweeds streaming through their bodies, streaming through their brains. These, our parents, 6,000 generations removed. And those who study the history of our brains credit this window of time with the explosive growth of our cerebral cortex, that part of the modern human machine that defines us, allows us to create higher concepts like the language I'm using right now. So you can follow me down this verbal path or squeeze meaning out of tangled letter shapes on a page. Thanks be to the sea. And this brings us to the heart of the matter. That same red blood coursing through our veins started out as rain, generated by massive acts of evaporation and condensation of the sea. That great puppeteer pulling the strings on a planet where life literally falls from the skies. Every being feeling its reach from the dry bottom of desert canyons and the slow time of glaciers. And the salt in your veins is a call and response to the sea, sharing the exact same diluted, tangy amount in every drop. And in one final planet-mimicking microcosm, the ratio of solid bone to liquid blood in your body precisely mirrors that of the land masses of Earth to the seas that encircle them. Wonders never cease. Some say we sprang from the sea. I say we never left. For that liquid, salty benevolence is inside every breath we take, every thought we think, every beat of our heart. Thanks be to the sea. Yeah. Thank you. Lest we forget, yeah? So, how are we doing time-wise, John? A little bit? One more? Yep. So, okay, so I'm going to switch up here a little bit. I think that, well, I'm going to do it. Playing rough. So, yeah. So well behaved during an unbroken stream of blue days that I clean forgot you could play so rough. On the last hot day of October, your light was ready to spill over the edge into darkness, the thin gray horizon hiding winter just out of sight. And then you came in swinging 6 straight days of house-rocking punches, 10 inches of life-giving liquid falling in the span of one morning's cup of coffee to the next. The river gorged and pushed out of its banks by the advancing tide. Sometimes you just don't know when to quit. And as I sit writing this, the thud of the surf calls me to walk outside, drawn by the pull of you and your knee-high foam and broken trees and the rearing, flagrant, creaming ladder of waves that you make from 6,000 miles of sea and the thin membrane of land under my feet. And in all of this, you say, it's easy to set out into the calm waters of summer when the light is low in the west and the world holds still. But to really know me, you say, I want you here, in this, humbled by cold, salt-rimmed eyes, staring into the west at me, dressed in gray, coming at you, playing rough. Thank you.
Okay, so hi. What's your name?
My name's Don Pugh. This is Kim Sayers.
Kim Sayers.
Okay, and where are you from, Don?
Snohomish, Washington.
Is this, and we're not going to ask you any questions unless if you want. Okay, so what brings you here?
I'm a fisher poet. I came down here to perform, tell lies.
Oh, so you're a performer?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, I'm a storyteller, although John Broderick, who's the granddaddy of this whole thing, always encourages us to try poetry. So last night I tried one. You want to hear it?
Yes, absolutely.
Granted, I'm not a poet, so this is like new ground for me. Roses are red, sockeyes are red. Poetry's hard. Oh, hell with it. Let's just go fish.
Great.
And then, of course, I bow. And then I go on to telling stories because that's what I do.
Well, how does it feel to be with a poet?
Oh, it's entertaining, yes, to say the least.
Have you any highlights for you? I mean, aside from obviously seeing his performance.
Oh, today, just seeing the sights of Astoria, really love the waterfront. Went down and had some razor clams, and yes, we love it here.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and I can cut that out if you want.
Okay, great.
But you did great.
Thank you.
Well, are you performing tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, when and where?
I'll be at the Voodoo at 9:15. Last night I was at the Liberty, which was being broadcast on KMUN. And of course, I have sometimes a little bit colorful language. And then I realized halfway through that it was being broadcast. So I apologized by using profanity. So I'm not sure how I ended up or whether I'll ever be asked back. But it was fun. We always have fun down here. Well, thank you.
All right.
You
Pleasure
bet.
to meet you. Thanks.
Bye. Enjoy the sun while it's here.